If you've burned through just about everything in your streaming queue over the last few months, why not revisit a beloved black and white series that is still eerily relevant today? Our girl Sheila Wacko has details about a modern-day presentation on a timeless TV show.
I don't know about you, Anya, but 2020 has felt like something straight out of the Twilight Zone. And I am not the only one who thinks so. ARLEN SCHUMER is an author, comic book illustrator, and pop culture expert who specializes in the classic show created by Rod Serling. ARLEN presents at universities and San Diego Comic-Con, and now he's been hosting a webinar called The Twilight Zone Ahead of Its Time, which takes a closer look at just how much the messages in the show still resonate today.
It means that the Twilight Zone, which was created 60 years ago by Rod Serling and company, created these timeless stories. You know, the definition of art is that it has to be both of its time and timeless. What if there wasn't racism? What if people didn't hate each other? So many of the Twilight Zone episodes present this other dimension called what if, and that's what makes the Twilight Zone this timeless, great show. It deals with all the big issues, life and death, man and God, man and the state, man and woman. And then there are these episodes about isolation.
Confinement in this case stretches as far as the eye can see.
Loneliness, solitude. The very first episode of The Twilight Zone, it's about a man in a deserted American, very Norman Rockwellian town, in a deserted town. What are we dealing with right now with the pandemic, with the lockdowns, with the shutdowns? Then I end up showing clips from a bunch of episodes throughout the Twilight Zone's 5-year run, where some of the dialogue sounds like it could have been torn from today's headlines.
Why don't we go out to a restaurant?
A restaurant? Why, Jana, my dear, why in the world would we go out to eat in a restaurant?
I mean, it literally, there are people living in self-isolation. There's people in forced isolation. There's people in isolation on asteroids. There's people in isolation in their own homes. In America in 1961, that sound like America in 2020.
ARLEN will also be hosting an upcoming webinar called Jews and Comics, and in addition to the Twilight Zone, he regularly presents on his other two favorite topics, comic books and Bruce Springsteen. The next Twilight Zone Ahead of Its Time webinar is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Tickets are just $10 and include access to the recording for a full week in case you can't watch it live. I will definitely be tuning in because it is my all-time favorite show, and this webinar honestly sounds fascinating, but I guess you could say that's in the eye of the beholder. Back to you, Anya.